In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the Imperium of Man bears the scars of betrayal, scars etched into history by the fall of the Emperor's once loyal sons, the Traitor Primarchs. These were the warriors meant to safeguard humanity, champions molded by the Emperor himself. But each, seduced by their own flaws and the dark whispers of chaos, turned against their father and their brothers, plunging the galaxy into the flames of the Horus heresy. Join us as we explore the tragic, twisted paths of the Traitor Primarchs, each one a tale of lost honor and boundless ambition. Their legacies serve as both a caution and a dark reminder of the Emperor's grand vision and its shattering. Horus Lupercal, the arch-traitor of the Imperium. The Emperor's chosen. Horus Lupercal was the first Primarch discovered by the Emperor, and quickly became his most trusted son. Raised on the brutal world of Chthoniya, Horus stood out not just for his martial skill but for his charisma and loyalty, embodying the Emperor's vision for humanity. After proving his worth, Horus was given command of the Luna Wolves, leading them with unmatched tactical genius and inspiring loyalty among his legion. The Emperor saw him as a paragon, a true heir, and ultimately bestowed upon Horus the title of War Master, placing him in command of the great crusade to unite all of humanity. Seeds of betrayal. As War Master, Horus achieved unprecedented victories, his name becoming a legend across the stars. However, this rise to power left him vulnerable to dark influences, ones that preyed upon his pride, ambition, and latent resentments. Sensing his growing discontent, the ruinous powers, the Chaos Gods, began to whisper to him, exploiting his doubts. It was Erebus of the Word-Bearers who delivered the final blow, corrupting Horus with visions of betrayal and godhood, convincing him that the Emperor was planning to discard him once his purpose was served. The seeds of betrayal took root, and Horus turned against his father, sparking the galaxy-shattering Horus heresy. The Horus heresy, the galaxy in flames. The Horus heresy was a brutal, universe-spanning civil war that pit brother against brother, legion against legion. Horus, now fully under the sway of chaos, led half of the Imperium's forces in open rebellion. The war was marked by horrific battles, betrayals, and the systematic destruction of worlds as Horus aimed to dismantle the Emperor's vision for humanity. For 7 bloody years, the galaxy was engulfed in flames, each battle bringing Horus closer to Terra, the heart of the Imperium. The final battle on Terra. The Siege of Terra was the climactic battle of the Horus heresy, a last stand to determine the fate of humanity. Horus, now a monstrous avatar of chaos, breached the imperial palace itself. In a final, fateful duel with his father, Horus demonstrated both the power he had gained and the depths to which he had fallen. The Emperor, driven by love for his son yet recognizing the darkness that consumed him, delivered a mortal blow, utterly destroying Horus to prevent his soul from becoming a permanent vessel for chaos. In doing so, the Emperor was himself gravely wounded and was entombed upon the Golden Throne, his body sustained but forever silent, leaving the Imperium to a grim fate. The legacy of the arch-traitor. Horus' betrayal left the Imperium scarred and forever changed. His name became synonymous with treachery, casting a shadow over the Imperium that has endured for 10,000 years. The Horus heresy reshaped the galaxy, birthing the Imperium as it exists now, a realm of endless war, suspicion, and fanaticism. Despite his ultimate defeat, Horus' legacy lingers as a grim reminder of the dangers of pride and ambition, and a story that every loyal Astartes and Imperial citizen learns as the greatest warning of all. Lorgar Aurelian, the apostle of heresy and the bearer of the word. The faithful Primarch of Colchis. Lorgar Aurelian, Primarch of the Word-Bearers, was discovered on the world of Colchis, a planet steeped in religious fervor and mysticism. Raised by the priesthood of the Covenant, Lorgar grew up with an intense sense of devotion, seeking answers to the mysteries of existence. When the Emperor arrived, Lorgar viewed him not just as a father but as a divine being. Unlike his brothers, who valued strength or strategy, Lorgar was deeply spiritual and saw the Emperor as a god to be worshipped. Under this belief, Lorgar committed himself to spreading the Emperor's light across the stars, guiding humanity's faith in the divinity of the Imperium. the word-bearers and the cult of the Emperor. Lorgar's legion, the word-bearers, reflected his intense devotion. They were not only warriors but also missionaries, spreading Lorgar's belief in the Emperor's divinity. Worlds conquered by the word-bearers became shrines to the Emperor, each victory a sacred act. However, this approach was not in line with the Emperor's vision. The Emperor sought to unite humanity under reason and science, not faith and superstition. His refusal to be worshipped as a god created tension between him and Lorgar, but Lorgar continued, convinced that humanity needed something greater to believe in. His devotion was unyielding, but it would soon be put to the test. The rebuke at Monarchia. The Emperor's disapproval reached its peak at Monarchia, a world the word-bearers had turned into a shrine city dedicated to his worship. Furious at Lorgar's disobedience, the Emperor ordered the Ultramarines, under Robert Guilliman, to raze Monarchia, destroying every monument and statue built in his honor. When Lorgar arrived, he was made to kneel before the Emperor and was publicly rebuked, humiliated before his legion. The Emperor's rejection crushed Lorgar, leaving him adrift and questioning everything he had ever believed. This profound betrayal scarred him deeply, leaving him vulnerable to the whispers of chaos. It was here that the seeds of Lorgar's ultimate fall were sown. The path to chaos. Heartbroken and disillusioned, Lorgar began to seek answers beyond the Imperium's teachings. Guided by Erebus and Corferin, two dark figures within his legion, Lorgar learned of the Chaos Gods and the power they wielded. Unlike the Emperor, who had rejected Lorgar's faith, the ruinous powers welcomed it. They offered purpose, power, and a role in reshaping the galaxy. Lorgar's zeal was rekindled, but this time it was directed toward the worship of chaos. He embraced the dark gods as his new masters, and his legion became the first to turn against the Imperium, paving the way for the Horus heresy. Lorgar became the apostle of chaos, preaching the gospel of the warp and turning humanity toward the worship of the very forces that sought to destroy it. The heresy and the great betrayal. During the Horus heresy, Lorgar played a key role in spreading corruption among his brothers. Through dark rituals and whispered promises, he manipulated others, fueling the fires of rebellion. Lorgar's word-bearers spread corruption and dissent, using the warp to turn worlds against the Emperor. His actions were those of a prophet and a fanatic, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone in his crusade to see the Emperor's empire torn apart. His influence reached deep, and it was his machinations that helped Horus fully embrace the powers of chaos. Lorgar saw the heresy as a holy war, a chance to overthrow the Emperor and usher in a new order under the gods of the warp. The Dark Apostle of the 41st Millennium. In the aftermath of the heresy, Lorgar ascended to demonhood, becoming a dark reflection of his once pious self. Now a demon prince, he is an immortal prophet of chaos, preaching the gospel of the dark gods from the depths of the warp. Lorgar has spent millennia spreading his faith, creating twisted cults and corrupting imperial worlds. Though he has withdrawn from many of the conflicts his brothers still wage, his influence remains as insidious as ever. Through his followers, he continues to poison the hearts and minds of humanity, turning them away from the Emperor and toward the gods of chaos. The legacy of Lorgar Aurelian. Lorgar's story is one of tragic faith and misplaced devotion. A Primarch who sought purpose in worship, he became a symbol of the dangers of blind zealotry and religious extremism. His journey from the Emperor's most faithful son to the prophet of chaos left a lasting scar on the galaxy, one that has endured for 10,000 years. The faith he once dedicated to the Emperor is now directed toward the dark gods, and his sermons of despair and corruption continue to lead humanity astray. Lorgar Aurelian stands as a reminder of how devotion, when twisted, can lead to ruin, his name forever synonymous with heresy and betrayal. Fulgrim, the Prince of Excess and Herald of Damnation. The world of chemos and the pursuit of perfection. Fulgrim, the Primarch of the Emperor's children, was found on the desolate world of chemos, a planet devoid of resources where survival was an art form in itself. In this harsh environment, Fulgrim rose to prominence, his charisma and determination guiding the people of chemos out of ruin. Even as a young Primarch, Fulgrim had a fierce desire for beauty, mastery, and perfection. When he was eventually found by the Emperor, Fulgrim's ideals aligned perfectly with the Emperor's vision of a unified, perfected humanity. Enthralled by his father's grand designs, Fulgrim saw himself as a symbol of excellence, embodying the beauty and refinement he believed humanity was destined for. The Emperor's Children and the Quest for Perfection. Fulgrim was given command of the Emperor's Children Legion, whose creed of striving for perfection in all things echoed their Primarch's philosophy. He instilled in his legion a rigorous standard of excellence, expecting every warrior to achieve mastery in battle and in the arts. Under Fulgrim's leadership, the Emperor's Children became a fearsome and disciplined force, admired for their elegance in both strategy and combat. To them, every war was not just a path to victory but a pursuit of flawless execution. Fulgrim's ideals elevated his legion to unprecedented heights, with each soldier striving to embody the purity of the Emperor's vision. The first whisper of corruption. Fulgrim's passion for beauty and mastery became a double-edged sword. His desire to surpass even the Emperor led him to pride and vanity, opening a dark path he was unaware of at first. This path began to unfold during the cleansing of Laren, where Fulgrim obtained an alien blade, a weapon infused with malevolent energy. The Lare blade amplified his desires and gradually allowed whispers of Slaanesh, the chaos god of excess, to creep into his thoughts. In his pursuit of beauty and perfection, Fulgrim grew increasingly obsessed, pushing his legion and himself toward unreachable ideals. The blade's influence drove him to abandon restraint, seeking pleasures and experiences beyond the mortal realm's limits. The betrayal of Fulgrim. Fulgrim's descent took a decisive turn when Horus, already corrupted by chaos, reached out to him. Though Fulgrim loved the Emperor, he was swayed by Horus' promises of godhood and supremacy. Viewing the Emperor's rules as stifling and limiting, Fulgrim succumbed to the whispers that painted the Emperor as a tyrant holding him back from true greatness. As the lure of Slaanesh tightened its hold, Fulgrim's pursuit of perfection turned to decadence and excess, leading him to betray the Emperor. Under his command, the Emperor's Children unleashed atrocities that horrified even their former allies, indulging in acts of brutality and debauchery that corrupted the soul of his once proud legion. Transformation into a demon prince. Fulgrim's lust for sensation and mastery ultimately earned him the attention of Slaanesh, who rewarded him by transforming him into a demon prince. In his new form, Fulgrim became an avatar of depravity, a twisted reflection of his ideals. His serpentine body and monstrous visage symbolized the depths to which he had fallen, embodying the excess he had embraced. From his palace in the Eye of Terror, Fulgrim now reigns as one of Slaanesh's most favored champions, indulging in pleasures beyond mortal understanding and spreading corruption throughout the galaxy. His followers worship him as the ultimate master of sensation, forever lost to the temptations he once sought to control. Fulgrim's legacy in the 41st millennium. In the current age, Fulgrim continues his dark crusade, a corrupted paragon spreading the blight of Slaanesh across the stars. He leads his legion, now a band of twisted hedonists, in campaigns of slaughter and debauchery against the Imperium. Fulgrim's obsession with beauty has become a plague upon the galaxy, as he subjects worlds to his horrifying standards of perfection, leaving ruin in his wake. His followers now worship him as a god, and his once noble ideals are forever tainted by the curse of Slaanesh. The tragic legacy of the Prince of Excess. Fulgrim's story stands as a cautionary tale of ambition and vanity, a reminder of how even noble pursuits can be twisted into damnation. Once a champion of beauty and purity, Fulgrim's legacy is now one of horror and corruption, his very name synonymous with betrayal. His fall from grace serves as a dark testament to the dangers of unchecked pride and the tragic end that awaits those who place their desires above loyalty and honor. Mortarion, the Reaper of Death and Herald of Decay. The toxic world of Barbarous. Mortarion, the Primarch of the Death Guard, was raised on Barbarous, a world of choking mists and toxic air where only the strongest could survive. The planet was ruled by cruel warlords who wielded dark sorcery, living high above the deadly fog that blanketed the lowlands, where the planet's downtrodden population struggled to survive. Mortarion was adopted by one of these warlords, a monstrous figure who sought to mold the young Primarch into a weapon of his own design. Despite his father's training, Mortarion never forgot the suffering of those in the lowlands. Driven by a grim determination to end their misery, he vowed to destroy the warlords and liberate his people from the deathly oppression. Resilience and vengeance in his heart. Mortarion's unique resilience to the toxic environment of Barbarous allowed him to endure conditions that would kill most mortals. Fueled by his desire for vengeance, he descended from the heights of the mountains to lead the lowland people in a bloody revolt against their overlords. Though Mortarion was a figure of awe and fear to his enemies, his ruthless approach and single-minded pursuit of victory made him as intimidating to his followers as he was to his foes. When the Emperor arrived on Barbarous, Mortarion was initially suspicious of him, viewing the Emperor as yet another tyrant. But after a grueling test of strength against his adoptive father, in which the Emperor ultimately intervened to save Mortarion, the Primarch accepted his new destiny among the stars. The Death Guard Legion and the Great Crusade. Given command of the Death Guard Legion, Mortarion found his warriors to be as resilient and unyielding as himself. He instilled within them a creed of endurance and a willingness to endure suffering to achieve victory. Under his leadership, the Death Guard became masters of attritional warfare, pressing forward no matter the cost, relentless and unbreakable even in the most nightmarish battlefields. Mortarion taught them to embrace hardship, making them an indomitable force in the Emperor's Great Crusade. The Death Guard became feared across the galaxy for their resilience, capable of outlasting any foe and enduring the harshest conditions. The Seed of Betrayal. Despite his loyalty to the Imperium, Mortarion grew increasingly resentful of the Emperor's reliance on psychers, whom he saw as little different from the warlords of Barbarous. He despised the idea of sorcery and considered it a violation of nature. This deep-seated hatred made Mortarion vulnerable to manipulation when Horus approached him during the Horus heresy. Horus exploited Mortarion's disdain for the Emperor's perceived hypocrisy, convincing him that the Emperor was a tyrant who intended to rule through deceit and psychic dominance. Blinded by his anger and a desire for revenge, Mortarion joined Horus in rebellion, turning against the Imperium he once fought to protect. The Plague of Nurgle. As the Death Guard sailed through the warp toward Terra, they encountered a horrific fate. Their fleet became trapped within a warp storm, and a virulent plague, later known as the Destroyer Plague, spread through their ships. Mortarion and his legions suffered excruciating deaths, only to be reborn in unending agony, as their bodies rotted and decayed from within. Desperate, Mortarion made a fateful decision to pledge himself to Nurgle, the chaos god of disease and decay. In exchange, Nurgle granted Mortarion and his warriors resilience beyond death itself, transforming the Death Guard into immortal harbingers of pestilence. Mortarion became a demon prince, his body a twisted reflection of his own hatred of sorcery and decay, embodying the very forces he once despised. The Reaper of Death in the 41st Millennium. In the 41st Millennium, Mortarion continues his war against the Imperium, but now as an instrument of Nurgle. From his diseased warships and plague-ridden strongholds, he unleashes waves of corruption upon the worlds of humanity. His once proud ideals have been consumed by hatred, and his soul remains eternally chained to the service of Nurgle. Mortarion has clashed repeatedly with his brother Primarch, Robert Guilliman, leading brutal campaigns against imperial worlds and spreading the influence of the Plague God. Mortarion's existence is one of perpetual suffering, a twisted irony as he enforces upon others the same torment he once sought to end. The Grim Legacy of Mortarion. Mortarion's story is one of tragic irony. A champion of endurance and strength, his path led him to become the very thing he once despised. He is a grim reminder of how hatred can be twisted into something monstrous and self-destructive. As the Death Guard spreads its infections across the galaxy, Mortarion remains a tortured soul, his rebellion an eternal plague on the Imperium, a dark testament to the price of betrayal and the ruin that follows. Magnus the Red, the Crimson King of the Thousand Suns. The Scholar of Prospero. Magnus the Red, also known as the Crimson King, was the Primarch of the Thousand Suns Legion and the most powerful psyker among his brothers. Born with incredible psychic gifts, Magnus was fiercely intelligent, ambitious, and endlessly curious about the mysteries of the warp. The Emperor placed him on Prospero, a world inhabited by scholars and mystics, where Magnus thrived, building a culture devoted to knowledge, psychic mastery, and wisdom. The Thousand Sons, his legion, embodied these same qualities, delving deeply into the forbidden arts to unlock the secrets of the universe. A complex relationship with the Emperor. When Magnus was reunited with the Emperor during the Great Crusade, he found a kindred spirit who shared his fascination with the warp. The Emperor encouraged Magnus' talents but with caution, warning him of the dangers that lay within the warp's depths. However, Magnus, confident in his abilities, continued his studies, believing his mastery of the warp could serve the Imperium's future. The Emperor valued Magnus' gifts but imposed strict restrictions, especially as psychic corruption was an ever-present threat. Magnus' deepening relationship with the warp, however, would ultimately lead to tragedy. The Edict of Nicaea. As psychic phenomena and sorcery spread within the Imperium, tensions around the use of such powers grew. This culminated in the Council of Nicaea, a gathering called by the Emperor to decide whether psychic practices should continue within the legions. Magnus argued passionately in favor of sorcery, seeing it as a tool for humanity's advancement. However, the Emperor ultimately forbade all forms of sorcery, enforcing the decision with strict orders. Magnus, unwilling to forsake his research, disobeyed this edict, believing his understanding of the warp could still benefit the Imperium and lead humanity toward enlightenment. The fall of Prospero. In his attempts to protect the Imperium, Magnus foresaw Horus's betrayal and reached out to the Emperor using forbidden warp sorcery to deliver a warning. However, this psychic intrusion inadvertently caused a catastrophic backlash, tearing through the Emperor's secret project, the Webway, shattering his trust in Magnus. Enraged, the Emperor ordered the Space Wolves, under Layman Russ, to bring Magnus to Terra for punishment. Horus, already corrupted, manipulated Russ into launching a full-scale assault on Prospero. The resulting devastation turned Prospero to ash, decimating Magnus' legion and forcing him to make a dark choice, to surrender to Tzeentch, the chaos god of change, in order to save what remained of his sons. The transformation and curse of the Thousand Sons. Betrayed, broken, and driven to desperation, Magnus accepted Tzeentch's offer, sealing his fate and the fate of the Thousand Sons. He and his legion were transformed, transported to the planet of the sorcerers in the warp. Here, Magnus fully embraced his role as Tzeentch's servant, becoming the demon Primarch of the Thousand Sons. His body became a towering figure of warp energy, a symbol of his psychic prowess but also his damnation. The Thousand Sons, cursed by Tzeentch, would see most of their warriors reduced to dust-encased automatons, known as rubric marines, locked in silent servitude for eternity. A haunting legacy. Magnus' story is a tragic one, filled with ambition, betrayal, and unintended consequences. Though he believed he was acting in the Imperium's best interest, his choices led him down a dark path from which he could never return. Today, Magnus wages war upon the Imperium he once sought to protect, yet his motives remain ambiguous. Driven by a mix of resentment, guilt, and perhaps a twisted desire to fulfill the destiny he once envisioned, the Crimson King remains a spectral figure within the galaxy. His tragic journey serves as a cautionary tale of hubris and the dangers of unrestrained ambition, casting a crimson shadow over the Imperium he had once hoped to elevate. Angron, the Red Angel of Chaos. The Gladiator of Nyceria. Angron, Primarch of the World Eaters, was shaped by a life of brutality on the world of Nyceria. Captured by slavers as a child, he was forced to fight in gladiatorial pits, enduring endless battles that turned him into a hardened warrior, but also left deep scars on his soul. As a means of control, his captors implanted the butcher's nails, cybernetic implants that heightened his aggression, leaving him in constant pain but amplifying his strength and fury. Angron became an unmatched combatant, and while he won countless victories, the nails stripped away any chance he had for peace or calm. When the Emperor found him, Angron was in the midst of a rebellion against his enslavers, leading his fellow gladiators in a desperate struggle for freedom. A reluctant servant of the Emperor. Despite his hatred of his oppressors, Angron's first reaction to the Emperor's arrival was one of defiance. He wanted to stand with his fellow gladiators in their rebellion, even if it meant death. However, the Emperor, refusing to lose one of his precious sons, forcibly teleported Angron away from the battlefield and onto a waiting ship, leaving his comrades to perish. This act sowed resentment in Angron's heart, planting seeds of bitterness that would later grow into hatred for the Emperor and his imperatives. Given command of the World Eater's Legion, Angron imposed the Butcher's nails upon them, infusing the Legion with his rage and thirst for bloodshed, which transformed them into berserkers feared across the stars. The descent into madness. Despite his loyalty to his Legion, Angron's simmering anger against the Emperor continued to grow, compounded by the relentless effects of the Butcher's nails. Unlike his brothers, Angron had no vision for the Imperium beyond endless slaughter, viewing diplomacy and governance as weakness. This inner torment made him vulnerable to the temptations of chaos. The Chaos Gods saw in him a perfect instrument of destruction, and they seized upon his rage to lure him into their ranks. When Horus began his rebellion, Angron eagerly joined, finding purpose in the unrestricted carnage that chaos promised. The World Eater's bloodlust. As the Horus heresy erupted, Angron's World Eater's Legion became a terrifying force of relentless violence, tearing through worlds with unchecked brutality. Angron's hatred for the Emperor and the Imperium fueled his every action, driving his legion to new heights of savagery. He cared little for strategy or alliances, but Horus understood the value of such raw power, unleashing Angron as a blunt instrument to sow terror across the Imperium. On countless worlds, Angron and his legion left scorched earth and broken cities in their wake, an unrestrained rampage that embodied the chaotic anarchy of the heresy. The apotheosis of the Red Angel. During the Shadow Crusade, Angron reached the apex of his bloodlust on the world of Nysiria, the same world that had enslaved him so long ago. There, his rage reached a fever pitch, and the Chaos Gods, answering his fury, transformed him into a demon prince of Khorne. Now an avatar of the Blood God, Angron's form was twisted into a monstrous shape, his mind forever lost to unrelenting fury. This transformation cemented his place as one of the most dangerous servants of chaos, bound eternally to Khorne and driven by an endless need to spill blood and claim skulls in his master's name. A legacy of blood and anguish. Angron's fall into chaos left a dark stain on the Imperium. His legion, the World Eaters, splintered into blood-crazed war bands after the heresy, continuing his legacy of violence across the galaxy. Angron himself appears on battlefields sporadically, summoned by dark rituals to wreak havoc and devastation in Khorne's name. The mere sight of the Red Angel fills his enemies with dread, for they know that Angron's rage is unquenchable, his bloodlust insatiable. His tragic legacy serves as a cautionary tale about the corrosive power of anger and the horrors of unchecked violence. Angron is no longer a son of the Emperor but a living weapon of chaos, destined to slaughter until the end of days. Perturabo, the Lord of Iron and the Architect of Destruction. A childhood of strife on Olympia. Perturabo, the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, was raised on the tumultuous world of Olympia. His early years were marked by rebellion, conflict, and harsh lessons in survival, which would mold him into a grim and stoic individual. Olympia's constant wars taught Perturabo that strength was the only path to stability. Known for his cold intellect and unmatched skill in siegecraft, Perturabo quickly came to view warfare as a form of engineering, each battle a puzzle to be solved with ruthless efficiency. Unlike some of his brothers who fought with zeal or honor, Perturabo approached warfare with brutal pragmatism, reuniting with the Emperor and leading the Iron Warriors. When the Emperor finally found him, Perturabo felt a mixture of relief and resentment. The Emperor offered him command over the Iron Warriors, a legion known for their resilience and skill in siegecraft, which aligned perfectly with Perturabo's own talents. But Perturabo harbored a simmering bitterness. He saw himself as the Emperor's necessary evil, the one Primarch burdened with the dirtiest and least glorious tasks. Whether besieging fortified worlds or breaking enemy defenses, the Iron Warriors did the work that others would not, but they rarely received recognition or honor for it. The Siege Master's Burden. Throughout the Great Crusade, the Iron Warriors were deployed for grueling, attritional warfare, laying siege to the most fortified enemy strongholds. Perturabo's tactical genius in siege warfare became legendary, but each brutal battle took a toll on him and his legion. This ceaseless, unglamorous role fostered a deep resentment in Perturabo, as he watched other legions celebrated as heroes while he and his Iron Warriors were treated like tools of destruction. Perturabo's simmering resentment grew into a bitter hatred toward his brother Primarchs, whom he viewed as ungrateful and favored by the Emperor. The breaking point and betrayal. The breaking point for Perturabo came with the rebellion on Olympia, his home world. He returned to quell the uprising, only to be met with betrayal from the very people he once fought to protect. Enraged and bitter, Perturabo unleashed the full wrath of the Iron Warriors upon Olympia, decimating its population in a display of merciless power. The massacre marked a point of no return. He became irrevocably hardened, seeing his actions as the inevitable cost of loyalty in a universe that seemed designed to betray him. Joining Horus and the descent into chaos. When Horus extended an offer to join his rebellion, Perturabo saw it as a chance to finally be freed from the Emperor's perceived hypocrisy and mistreatment. Siding with Horus, Perturabo fully embraced his role as a tool of destruction, joining the traitor legions in a galaxy-spanning war against the Emperor. His expertise in siege warfare would make him a pivotal figure in the ensuing Horus heresy. Perturabo's crowning achievement, and the dark legacy he would leave behind, was his role in the Siege of Terra, where he orchestrated devastating assaults on the Imperial Palace's defenses, bringing the Emperor's stronghold to the brink of ruin. The ascension to demonhood and eternal damnation. After Horus's defeat and the ultimate failure of the traitor legions, Perturabo retreated into the Eye of Terror, his bitterness only deepened by the humiliation of their loss. Siege, the chaos god of change and scheming, eventually rewarded Perturabo's unwavering dedication to destruction with ascension to demonhood. As a demon prince, Perturabo continues to embody the relentless force of siege and ruin, an eternal embodiment of bitter wrath. From his fortress in the Eye of Terror, he watches the Imperium he once served, eternally bent on dismantling the Emperor's work. The bitter legacy of the Lord of Iron. Perturabo's story is one of relentless duty warped into unyielding hatred. His life reflects the danger of being consumed by bitterness and the way that resentment, when left unchecked, can lead to monstrous deeds. Perturabo and his Iron Warriors are the Imperium's dark mirror, showing the cost of loyalty without gratitude, and a reminder of the ruinous path that can follow when strength becomes its own prison. Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter and Prophet of Doom. The Shadow of Nostromo. Konrad Curze, known as the Night Haunter, was discovered on the planet Nostromo, a dark and corrupt world plagued by crime, poverty, and endless night. Growing up alone on Nostromo, Curze witnessed the worst of humanity, learning early that fear was a powerful weapon. Driven by an internal sense of justice and a brutal code of morality, he set out to cleanse the city of Nostromo Quintus, using terror and swift, merciless violence. Criminals feared him as a shadowy executioner, and his methods led to a temporary peace, though his actions left the people of Nostromo both terrified and cowed. When the Emperor arrived, he saw potential in Curze, though he knew the Primarch's methods were far from orthodox. Despite his visions of darkness, Curze pledged himself to the Emperor and was given command of the Night Lords' Legion. The Night Lords and the Tactics of Terror. Under Curze's leadership, the Night Lords became a legion defined by fear and ruthless enforcement of order. Curze encouraged his warriors to employ terror tactics, using public executions, dismemberments, and psychological warfare to subdue entire populations. The Night Lords became infamous, feared by both the enemies of the Imperium and their own allies. Unlike his brothers, Curze did not pursue glory or honor. His goal was to maintain order through fear, no matter the cost. He saw himself as a necessary evil, a weapon for the Emperor to use against the galaxy's darkness. However, His brutal methods and his growing disillusionment with the hypocrisy of the Imperium would plant the seeds of his eventual betrayal. The curse of prophecy. One of Curze's defining traits was his gift of foresight, a curse that showed him visions of the future. He saw the fall of his legion, the death of his brothers, and even his own demise at the hands of an assassin. These visions filled him with despair and rage, as he believed he was predestined to walk a path of darkness and death. Curze's mind began to unravel, his grim prophecies fueling his descent into madness. He saw the Emperor as a hypocrite, a ruler who claimed to uphold justice but who allowed corruption and betrayal to fester. Convinced that he was meant to show the Imperium its own flaws, Curze embraced his role as the Night Haunter, a grim reaper who would expose the hypocrisy of mankind. The betrayal and the Horus heresy. When Horus rose in rebellion, Curze joined the Traitor Primarchs, though his reasons were complex. He did not turn against the Emperor out of a desire for power or ambition like his brothers, but rather as an act of vengeance against the Imperium itself. To Curze, the Emperor and his ideals were corrupt, and he saw Horus' rebellion as an opportunity to punish humanity for its sins. During the Horus heresy, the Night Lords unleashed terror across the galaxy, leaving a trail of horror and destruction. Curze's tactics grew even more ruthless, his sanity slipping further as he reveled in the carnage. His actions were both a dark warning and a twisted reflection of the Imperium's own brutality. The final descent. As the Horus heresy ended, Curze's visions of his own death haunted him. He withdrew from his brothers and allowed himself to be consumed by madness, viewing himself as a martyr destined to expose the Imperium's corruption through his actions. He saw his death as inevitable and refused to avoid it, believing that it would vindicate his vision. Eventually, Curze returned to Nostromo, where he allowed his legion to spiral into anarchy and murder, becoming a symbol of despair and ruin. His belief in his cursed destiny led him to allow an imperial assassin to finally end his life. In his final moments, Curze welcomed his fate, convinced that his death would reveal the truth of the Imperium's hypocrisy. The legacy of the Night Haunter. Konrad Curze's legacy is one of terror and tragedy. His life serves as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the darkness within the human soul. He saw himself as a prophet of doom, a necessary evil force to wield fear to expose the lies he saw in the Imperium. Yet, his methods led to madness, transforming him into the very monster he had once sought to destroy. His story stands as a warning of the price of vengeance, as his visions of doom came true, not only for himself but for his entire legion. The Night Haunter's name lives on as a tale of horror and despair, a grim testament to the fine line between justice and tyranny. Alpharius and Omegon, the elusive twin Primarchs of the Alpha Legion. The Hidden Ones? Alpharius and Omegon, the Primarchs of the Alpha Legion, are perhaps the most mysterious and enigmatic figures among their brothers. Known for their secrecy, cunning, and mastery of deception, the Alpha Legion operates in ways entirely different from any other Space Marine Legion. Alpharius and Omegon, the only Primarchs who shared their genetic heritage, cultivated an aura of ambiguity and misdirection that permeated the entire Legion. They were rarely seen together, leading to persistent rumors and confusion over who was actually in command at any given time. Their mantra was secrecy, their strength deception, and their actions often appeared as if they were always one step ahead. Masters of deception. Unlike the other Primarchs, who led their legions with visible authority and presence, Alpharius and Omegon encouraged every member of the Alpha Legion to adopt their own identity, making it nearly impossible for outsiders to identify who was leading any given mission. Their command style was unique. Rather than relying on individual heroics or martial prowess, they encouraged a culture of unity and mystery, making each battle a web of misleading tactics and espionage. The Alpha Legion's tactics confused their enemies, who could never be sure where the true strike would come from or who exactly they were fighting. Allegiances in question. When Horus approached Alpharius and Omegon to join his rebellion, the twins' motives were unclear. Some accounts suggest that they were genuinely swayed by Horus' arguments against the Emperor, seeing his concerns as valid. Other sources claim their allegiance to Horus was a calculated move, possibly even an assignment orchestrated by the Emperor himself. This layer of uncertainty regarding their true loyalties has left scholars of the Imperium and even Chaos leaders questioning their true motives to this day. Alpharius and Omegon's legacy. Their lives, shrouded in secrecy, are echoed in the legends of their death. Imperial records claim that Alpharius was killed by Robert Guilliman, while others suggest Omegon was slain by Rogel Dorn. However, no one knows if either of them truly perished, or if they continue to manipulate events from the shadows. The Alpha Legion itself carries on their legacy, continuing to spread chaos and confusion among the Imperium and even their supposed allies in chaos. Their motto, Hydra Dominatus, reminds all who face them that the Alpha Legion's head, like a Hydra, will always regrow. An unending mystery. In the end, the story of Alpharius and Omegon remains an enigma. Even 10,000 years later, the Imperium still cannot decipher the ultimate goal of the Alpha Legion or the true allegiances of its Primarchs. They are a riddle without a solution, a specter lurking within the dark corners of the galaxy, leaving behind a legacy that embodies secrecy, subterfuge, and the dangerous allure of hidden truths. Thank you for joining us on this dark journey through the stories of the Traitor Primarchs, each once a hero of the Imperium but ultimately consumed by ambition, resentment, and the twisted powers of chaos. As we've seen, the galaxy still bears the scars of their betrayals, and their legacies live on as grim reminders of the price of turning against the Emperor. In the next video, we'll dive into the aftermath of their actions and explore how their corruptions continue to shape the 41st millennium. From Chaos Legions to the struggles of the Imperium's defenders, there's much more to uncover in this galaxy of endless war. So, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay with us for the next chapter of Warhammer 40k lore. Until then, remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.